You're telling me the humans are the only species to pass the evaluation? High Arbiter Zorvik Stahl stood at the center of the celestial conclave's vaulted chamber, his crystalline limbs shimmering in startled hues. Rays of fractured light refracted across the polished walls, dancing like confused constellations. His form trembled with the kind of disbelief usually reserved for cosmic anomalies and accounting errors. Across from him, Administrator Venkar braced himself. His gelatinous core pulsed nervously, stalks twitching. Yes, your brilliance. The same humans. The ones who voluntarily leap from stairs, record it, and then laugh about it. Ah. Zorbik dimmed to a weary amber, the prismatic accord's universal sign of exhausted skepticism. Please tell me, you're exaggerating. Not at all, Venkar replied, tapping a control panel with one of his less wobbly appendages. They also appear to take great delight in watching their juvenile felines do the same, for recreation. A vast hollow display bloomed to life between them, unfurling a galactic timeline like a ribbon of starlight. Venkar's voice took on the tone of a curator trying to explain how a priceless artifact had been used as a coffee coaster. For the past 47,000 standard cycles, we have administered the Sentience Integration Assessment to potential members of the Intergalactic Council, a test composed of 3 phases: problem-solving, ethical reasoning, and adaptive response. Not a single species has passed all 3, not one. Zorvik's crystalline ridges flared with irritation. Skip the history lesson. Of course, Venkar said, zooming in. The Zarnathi, despite having 17 cerebral lobes, failed the quantum maze after entering a recursive panic loop. The Epsilari hive mind became paralyzed, debating whether pressing the start button violated consent. And the Glothan Collective, he paused, lips trembling. We do not speak of the Glothan incident. Zorvix winced. 3 testing stations vaporized by interpretive dance. Indeed, but the humans... Venkar hesitated, pulling up the footage. They approached it differently. 17 Earth hours earlier, Sarah Chen stared down a floating, humming orb of alien technology. She stood alone in a vast metallic chamber, wearing a hoodie that read "Gravity is just a theory," and clutching a stainless steel coffee tumbler like a lifeline. So let me get this straight, she said, pointing her free hand at the glowing orb. You're telling me this is some galactic exam to determine if we get access to Space Club benefits, and you picked me, a 9th-grade physics teacher from Cleveland, because of a quantum algorithm? The orb hovered, blinking. Correct. Right. Quantum algorithm. Or someone threw a dart at a phone book. Our selection methods are incomprehensible to your species. Sarah took a sip of her lukewarm coffee and arched an eyebrow. Try me. I once had to explain why eating Tide Pods is dangerous using Newton's laws. The orb fluttered momentarily. Let us begin. Phase 1. Navigate the quantum hypermaze. Cool, Sarah said, already pulling out her phone. Just one question. Open book? The orb blinked. Excuse me? You didn't say I couldn't ask for help? This is a serious evaluation of cognitive... Perfect. She opened her group chat. Hey nerds, she typed. Alien test. Need help. Quantum maze. The replies flooded in. Screenshots, equations, sarcastic memes, 3 references to XKCD comics, and at least 1 gif of a cat falling into a box. 20 minutes later, Sarah had not only solved the maze, but triggered a logical exploit that allowed her to complete it before she even started. The orb blinked rapidly, its glow strobing like a broken LED. It was, in the machine's own words, processing confusion. Sarah leaned against the console, checking her phone again. So, what's next? The orb struggled to regain composure. Phase 2, ethical reasoning, a dilemma of significant complexity involving... Trolley problem? Sarah asked. What? You know, the runaway train, 5 people on one track, one on the other, classic. We got like 10,000 versions of that. We even made a musical about it. This is more sophisticated. Sure, one sec. She fired off another message. Ethics puzzle time, she wrote. Big stakes, possibly judged by space gods. The responses came back almost instantly. Comments about Kantian imperatives, moral relativism, utilitarianism, and, somehow, cake. In under an hour, Sarah had synthesized an analysis complete with references, citations, and footnotes, and finished it with a diagram that used emojis to explain variable moral weight distribution. The orb flickered magenta. You cannot just crowdsource moral dilemmas. Watch me, Sarah said with a grin. We got a Discord server for this. The orb's voice now carried the tremor of existential dread. Final phase, adaptive response. Unexpected scenarios. Your kind must demonstrate creativity and composure. Oh, improv, Sarah said brightly. Sweet. She sent out one last message. Last round. Need to be weird, smart, and mildly chaotic. Go. What followed could only be described as collaborative madness. Cat physics, 3 interpretive TikTok dances, a spontaneous art sculpture made from vending machine packaging, and, most troubling to the orb, a controlled nuclear reaction using a Starbucks gift card and 2 paperclips. Sarah logged the results on Reddit. Back in the celestial conclave, Zorvix watched the footage in stunned silence. His body slowly began to brighten into a dazzling white, the rare color of dawning epiphany among his kind. So humanity passed, not by superior cognition, not by individual brilliance, but by asking for help, by working together, by memeing their way to galactic citizenship. They never treated it like a test, Venkar said. To them, it was just Tuesday. Like helping a student solve their homework. Zorix nodded slowly. And they made it fun. Yes, and recorded all of it for their social networks. Zorvix turned to face the chamber. Administrator, notify the council. It's already done, Venkar replied. Sarah Chen posted it to her Instagram 3 hours ago. The council has been tagged. We are now trending. Zorvik let out something halfway between a sigh and a laugh. The galaxy just got a lot more complicated. Sarah Chen had once explained to a 9th grader why microwaving a fork wasn't technically a war crime. She had handled parent-teacher conferences with coffee-field diplomacy. She had survived an entire semester of teaching quantum mechanics to teenagers who regularly confused quarks with granola bars. None of that, however, had prepared her for this. She stood alone in the middle of an alien testing chamber, surrounded by humming walls of polished obsidian that seemed to breathe with ambient light. At the center of the room hovered the orb, her self-proclaimed galactic proctor, glowing faintly like a judgmental jelly bean. Phase 1, Quantum Maze Navigation, the orb announced, hovering just inches from her face. This will test your ability to perceive and solve multi-dimensional logic structures. Sarah gave it a sideways glance. You ever met a Cleveland school board budget? The orb ignored her. A flickering pathway appeared before her, spiraling corridors folding in on themselves like some unholy marriage between an Escher drawing and a Rubik's Cube in freefall. Shapes twisted in and out of visibility, and the floor rearranged itself with each blink. The maze wasn't just physical, it was perceptual. Time itself hiccuped near the edges. Sarah took a deep breath. Right, quantum nonsense maze. Nothing I haven't seen in standardized testing metaphors. She pulled out her phone. To her relief, the signal bars were full. Apparently, alien dimensions still respected Earth cell towers. She thumbed open her group chat. Nerd heard, emergency protocol mode. Sarah. Hey guys, stuck in a quantum maze, legitimately alien this time. Tips? Dr. Brian, ooh, the real deal, Picture pause. Sarah, image attached, confusing swirl of fractal nonsense with her foot for scale. Yes. OMG, that's a 4D Klein bottle twist structure. Classic. It's a recursive space loop nested inside a non-orientable surface. You just have to create a counterintuitive path reversal. Easy. Kyle, have you tried screaming at it in binary? Dr. Brian, do not scream at the maze. Sarah chuckled and set her phone on the hovering interface. She followed her friend's advice to the letter, walking through the maze not as one might navigate a hallway, but as a suggestion to space-time itself. The floor twisted, the walls shifted. One moment she was walking upside down, the next she was sideways through a corridor that didn't exist a second ago. After about 20 minutes and a surprising detour involving a corridor that taught her the fundamentals of string theory via interpretive scent, she stood back at the entrance. Only the orb remained, pulsing erratically like it had hiccups. That you were supposed to take at least 12 hours, he muttered, and solve the final node with blindfolded tensor folding. I found a shortcut, Sarah said nonchalantly, stretching her shoulders. Also, I think your simulation has a bug. It let me reverse temporal skip through node 3 by activating a feedback loop with my phone's flashlight. The orb dimmed into a nervous purple. That shouldn't be possible. Well, lucky me, she said. So, what's next? Do I get a sticker? A juice box? Maybe a sticker and a juice box? No, you get Phase 2, the orb said, clearly rattled. But first, how did you even find the shortcut? Sarah pulled out her phone again and scrolled through the messages. Group chat and Reddit. Also Wikipedia, 2 TikTok explainers, and a meme I'm pretty sure came from a Star Trek fan forum. Collaborative knowledge is kinda our thing. The orb buzzed softly, trying to reboot its confidence. You manipulated the dimensional core using a flashlight and sarcasm. Technically, sarcasm wasn't required, Sarah said, but it did help. Back at the Celestial Conclave, Administrator Venkar sat in silent awe as the playback of Sarah's maze run finished. He slowly turned to High Arbiter Zorvix, whose crystals had turned the color of deep space awe. She didn't just pass, Venkar whispered. She glitched the system. She didn't glitch it, Zorvix replied, voice almost reverent. She solved it sideways. She didn't play the game the way it was designed. She changed the rules to make the game play her. The room fell into silence. She found a bug, Zorvix murmured, almost giddy, in our best simulation, and she fixed it, with a flashlight and crowdsourced memes. Venkar's stalks curled in disbelief. And she's just a teacher. Exactly, Zorvix said. A human who teaches other humans. That's who we chose. Venkar glanced toward the simulation screen, now replaying Sarah's shortcut frame by frame in slow motion. Shall I update the test scoring algorithm? Zorvix turned, a glint forming in his crystalline face. No. Let's see how far this teacher takes us. The orb was visibly rattled. Not that it had a face, just the same softly glowing sphere that hovered above Sarah's head with self-importance and high-frequency hums. But now it flickered and pulsed in agitated rhythm, like a machine trying to reboot after being dunked in soda. Phase 2, it said, voice pitched slightly higher than before. Ethical reasoning. You will now face a morally complex scenario designed to test your species' internal moral framework. Sarah casually leaned on the glowing console in front of her. Oh, good, philosophy. I thought this was going to be hard. The orb hesitated. The following dilemma has stymied hundreds of civilizations. It involves a branching decision tree with over 13,000 potential ethical forks, each weighted by a dynamic moral calculus derived from... Is this the trolley problem? Sarah interrupted. There was a pause. We do not use terrestrial transportation metaphors. Because this really sounds like the trolley problem. It is thematically similar. Sarah gave a slow nod, clearly unfazed. Cool, I teach this to high schoolers. With diagrams and sock puppets. The orb dimmed slightly. She was already typing. Sarah! Hey nerds. I've got an alien morality test. Pretty sure it's trolley problem adjacent, but with cosmic stakes. Help? Philosophy Pete. My time has come. Quantum Queen Ma. Upload the scenario. I'll run it against Kantian logic trees. Rocket Girl Jess. Which version? The original? The Fat Man variant? Or the one where the trolley gains sentience halfway through? Dr. Brian, don't forget the nihilist approach. Nothing matters. Ride the train. Sarah, uploading now. The orb is blinking a lot. I think I broke it. She snapped a picture of the glowing alien console and dropped it in the chat. In less than 15 minutes, her group had mapped out the base structure of the ethical simulation, reverse-engineered the prioritization matrix, and supplied detailed counterarguments from at least 4 philosophical traditions: Western, Eastern, existential, and whatever that one time Jess did a debate club improv was. Sarah collated their responses into a 12-point ethical synthesis. She attached annotations, citations, and a meme showing Aristotle photoshopped into a Space Jam poster, which she labeled Mood Mid-Test Morality. The orb's glow faded into a soft lavender haze, the color of machine-level existential crisis. This analysis is comprehensive, it finally managed. Yeah, I like to cover all angles, Sarah replied, sipping from her water bottle. Also, the XKCD comic on page 4 is critical. Frame 32, specifically, has both sarcasm and math. This was intended to be a solo assessment, the orb said, tone shifting from confusion to caution. You never said that. You said it tested species-level readiness. I'm part of a species. We collaborate. You're bending the spirit of the test. I'm a teacher. That's literally my job. Back in the celestial conclave, Administrator Venkar had frozen mid-mouth movement. She cited meme theory in an ethics exam. High Arbiter Zorvik Sthal stared at the data feed replaying in front of them. The chamber was unusually silent for a place where galaxies were judged. She crowdsourced morality. With efficiency, humor, and something called Reddit gold. Over 7,000 responses, Venkar confirmed, tentacles twitching. Several were oddly profound. User referenced a dessert recipe mid-analyzer, Zorvix muttered. Venkar hesitated. That recipe has since been peer-reviewed. It's apparently delicious and symbolically meaningful. Zorvik sighed. So, what have we learned? That humans outsource ethical questions to entire communities and respond to moral complexity with jokes, with stickers and YouTube explainers. And yet, Venkar added, her solution was robust. It encompassed all 3 ethical frameworks we were testing for. She found answers we hadn't anticipated. Zorbix turned toward the observation window, staring into the black spiral of the universe beyond. Every other species treated the test as sacred. She treated it like an office debate thread, moderated by cat memes. She didn't treat it lightly, Venkar said softly. She just didn't treat it like she was alone. Back inside the simulation chamber, Sarah was adjusting her hair in the reflection of the console screen. Are we good? She asked the orb. You pass, it said faintly. Cool. Let me know if you need a reference. I got a friend who wrote a whole thesis on the ethics of time travel and pizza toppings. The orb floated in silence for several seconds. Prepare for Phase 3. Sarah smiled. You're adorable when you're panicking. The orb was not doing well. Its once steady glow now flickered like a faulty neon sign, and the melodic voice that once delivered confident assessments now carried the distinct tone of someone regretting their life choices or programming protocols. Phase 3, it announced, voice quavering ever so slightly. Adaptive response simulation. This phase is designed to test real-time creative problem-solving in unpredictable scenarios. Sarah Chen clapped her hands once, eyes sparkling. Ooh, improv! Excellent. Let's make some chaos. The orb stuttered. I must clarify, this simulation will adapt in real time based on your decisions. You will not have time to consult your external knowledge networks. Sarah held up her phone with a grin. You say that, but you keep giving me great Wi-Fi. She was already texting. Sarah, final round. Alien improv. Probably a chaos gauntlet. Ideas? Improv Master Kyle. Yes and. Rocket Girl Jess. Break every rule. Also maybe break dance. Quantum Queen Ma. Controlled chaos is still chaos. Go meta. Dr. Brian, if you can't win, change the victory conditions. The orb's chamber shimmered as the simulation activated. Walls folded away to reveal a strange hybrid of classroom, laboratory, and interdimensional performance stage. Reality flickered, time bent at the corners. The air was thick with possibility and mild static. Your task, the orb said, is to neutralize a fluctuating gravitic instability forming in the center of the test chamber. You may use available tools. Solutions must be non-destructive and stable across probability fields. Sarah looked around. A few boxes of materials had appeared on a workbench. Wire, clamps, alien metal sheets, a packet of glitter, and, inexplicably, a roll of duct tape labeled multiversal grade. Oh boy, she whispered. It's arts and crafts time. She grabbed the tape, flipped her camera on, and began recording. This is for future Earth educators, she announced. If you ever have to stabilize a gravity knot while explaining physics to aliens and dancing at the same time, here's how you do it. What followed was 2 hours of what could only be described as brilliant lunacy. Sarah performed a mashup of 3 TikTok dances, one of which was banned in 4 countries due to whiplash risk. She narrated each step in real time, mixing gravitational field theory with cooking metaphors. At one point, she balanced a beaker filled with glowing blue plasma on her head, while rerouting power from a wall panel using 2 paper clips and the USB end of her phone charger. She initiated a localized fusion reaction by amplifying kinetic rhythm using synchronized foot tapping. I call this the gravity salsa, she declared, moments before the shimmering energy orb at the center of the chamber shrank into a perfect point and stabilized with a soft ding, like a microwave finishing a bag of popcorn. The orb emitted a long, electronic wheeze. That was not in the approved solution tree, it whispered. Yeah, no offense, Sarah replied, tying her hair back with a glow-in-the-dark scrunchie, but your solution tree sucks. In the celestial conclave, Administrator Venkar had abandoned his usual posture of serene analysis and was now clinging to the edge of his observation pod, like a being watching a high-speed crash in slow motion. She stabilized a gravitic anomaly by dancing, he said, stunned. She choreographed quantum manipulation, High Arbiter Zorvix replied, just as stunned, using music, memes, and a motivational quote that referenced Newton, Beyoncé, and plasma resonance. She's turning science into entertainment. She's turning entertainment into science. Back in the chamber, Sarah was wrapping up her demonstration, which she titled Adaptive Learning Under Pressure While Going Viral. Her video had already uploaded. She leaned against the console, sweaty but triumphant. So, how'd I do? The orb flickered, making a low electronic sound like a modem in pain. You passed. Sarah grinned. Knew it. What's my prize? You may now leave the simulation. Oh no, I'm milking this, she said, tapping on her phone again. Sarah, good news. I broke galactic physics with dance. Again. We're officially certified chaotic geniuses. Rocket Girl Jess, yes. Quantum Queen Ma, Did you use the glitter? Sarah, all of it. The singularity sparkled. Outside in the conclave, Zorvix turned to Venkar. She created a new method of adaptive problem-solving, one that integrates scientific accuracy with real-time improvisation and community feedback. She also taught the simulation to clap, Venkar added. That shouldn't be possible. Zorvix smiled. Maybe not for us, but apparently for humans, science is just another form of dance. High above the planetary rings of Mirax Prime, inside a council chamber carved from crystalline alloys older than most galaxies, High Arbiter Zorvix Thal stared blankly at a floating display screen. The screen pulsed softly, playing a high-definition replay of Sarah Chen, stabilizing a fusion anomaly while dancing to a beat she generated herself, using duct-taped alien tech and the side of a vending unit. He didn't blink. His species didn't blink. But somehow, he found himself wishing they could. Administrator Venkar, now hunched slightly from stress, tentatively broke the silence. Shall we proceed with debriefing? Zorvix didn't respond right away. His crystalline form gently shifted through a spectrum of stunned shades, like a mineral slowly realizing it had been turned into a disco ball. Venkar cleared his throat stalks. The adaptive test logs are complete, fusion containment held, the anomaly resolved with, a dance-based kinetic stabilization technique involving elbows and rhythmic stomping, all parameters, passed. Zorvix slowly rotated toward him. She did it with a playlist labeled Lab Bangers, Vault 3. Correct. And she asked her friends for the beat drop timing. Indeed. We traced at least 16 distinct contributors from Earth-based communication networks. Zorvix let out a sound halfway between a sigh and a static pop. So, we have confirmed it. Venkar nodded solemnly. Yes, your brilliance. The human's greatest evolutionary advantage is the group chat. Sarah Chen had returned to Earth. Technically, physically, she was back in her Cleveland classroom, standing at the front of room 209 with a dry erase marker in one hand and a coffee in the other. But mentally, she was still orbiting a million miles above her lesson plan. Her students, however, had no such trouble. They were practically vibrating with excitement. Miss Chan, is it true the Galactic Council is now following you on social media? Did you really invent a new science dance? Is it true aliens are downloading TikTok just to watch you do physics with cats? Sarah took a long sip of coffee, placed her marker on the board, and nodded slowly. All of that is technically accurate. The class erupted. One student was already live streaming on what was now called Galactalk, a platform humans didn't create but had somehow already dominated. Sarah pulled up the class chat thread on the holographic projector. The latest update from Zorvix blinked at the top. Hi, Arbiter Zorvix. We are still unsure what constitutes a bop, but your gravitational remix was effective. Respect. Rocket Girl Jess, Zix with the vibes. Quantum Queen Ma, reminder we are currently Earth's scientific interface. Please use emojis responsibly. To Brian, I used one meme thread to solve an ancient wormhole paradox. Memes are sacred now. Sarah, remember kids, the council is watching and grading. It wasn't just a chat group anymore. It was a think tank, a collective, a constantly evolving swarm of humor, expertise, and chaos. It included high schoolers, Nobel candidates, caffeine pound fan artists, and 3 sentient beings from other star systems. And it worked. Zorvix had confirmed it in the latest transmission. Every single one of the humans' major breakthroughs during the testing trials had been made possible not by solitary genius, but by distributed weirdness. The group chat had reverse-engineered a 4-dimensional probability engine, crowd debated the ethics of cloning with a sentient mushroom, and discovered a more efficient method of subspace folding entirely by accident, while arguing about pineapple on pizza. They even held a virtual bake sale fundraiser across systems, One of the donated pastries achieved low orbit. Back in the celestial conclave, Venker scrolled through the logs, trying to understand. They don't see complexity as a barrier. No, Zorvix agreed. They see it as an invitation to be ridiculous. Well, does it work? Zorvix looked over the compiled data. The overlapping chat screenshots, the equations written beside doodles of cats and lab coats, the annotated gift threads titled Moral Frameworks as Breakfast Foods. Because they don't try to prove how smart they are, they just try to solve the problem together, with enthusiasm and sarcasm and means. Sarah watched her students recreate the quantum maze using oversized pool noodles and bean bags as space-time nodes. She didn't stop them. They were testing chaos theory with dodgeballs. Her phone buzzed again. Galactic Council notice. Human collaboration networks now formally recognized as species-level adaptive intelligence systems. Sarah told you group chats were the future. She turned back to her class. All right, geniuses, time to break the universe again. Everyone grab your lab partners and your best punchlines. The room exploded into motion. At 8:02 a.m., a Cleveland high school classroom became the most diplomatically significant building in the galaxy. Room 209 smelled faintly of dry erase markers, microwaved breakfast burritos, and the lingering ozone that followed a minor quantum breach someone accidentally opened during third serochemistry the day before. Sarah Chen, recently declared the most educationally dangerous human by 3 galactic think tanks, sipped her coffee and stared at her class like it was a lit fuse. Okay, roll call, she said, flipping open her tablet. Humans, raise your hands. A forest of hands went up. Great, crystalline beings? A shimmering shard of refracted light waved telepathically from near the windowsill. It had molded itself into what might generously be described as a desk. Zorik, you can just glow. No need to adjust the window tint. The light pulsed a bashful magenta. Zurblakiens? A gelatinous blob with 7 eye stalks raised one in what was probably a salute, though it could also have been a sneeze. Perfect. Okay, folks, this is not a drill. Today marks the first day of the official intergalactic education exchange. Yes, you're excited. Yes, I'm excited. No, you cannot try to feed the exchange students your leftover hot Cheetos. Tommy raised his hand, but Zorik liked them. Zorik pulsed defensively. That's not the point. Sarah turned toward the whiteboard, then changed her mind and turned back to the holoprojector instead. Traditional writing tools were getting harder to use now that half the student body glowed or hovered. On the wall, she pulled up a welcome message from the Galactic Council's Education Committee. It featured the Council's official seal, which now had an additional icon floating proudly above it, a slice of pizza being high-fived by a neutron star. Welcome to Earth School, Sarah read aloud. Please bring snacks. The classroom collectively lost it. Jess was already designing t-shirts with the slogan. Kyle was remixing it into a theme song using his tablet's beatbox app. Voop, the Zorblakian exchange student, was doing his best impression of someone trying to chew a granola bar using gills. Sarah let them go for 30 seconds before holding up a hand. Focus, crew. First item on today's agenda, safety orientation. Zorik's light dimmed anxiously. Don't worry. Nothing exploded last week that couldn't be reassembled. Mostly. A new holo slid into view. It was the class schedule, adapted and chaotic as ever. 3rd period, Galactic Ethics and Empathy Lab. 4th, Quantum Gymnastics. Lunch, Cross-Cultural Food Court Diplomacy. Today's guest lecture is by Dr. Floon of the Epsilari Hive. He'll be covering the philosophical implications of lunch-line behavior. The human students nodded solemnly. They had learned early that aliens took line etiquette very seriously. Sarah stepped aside as the door to the classroom hissed open. Dr. Flonin entered, 7 feet of floating neural mist suspended in a containment field that sparkled faintly, like fog made of starlight. Greetings, educators in training, Dr. Flynn intoned through their translator drone. Today we shall explore the delicate balance between collective cooperation and food hoarding instincts. I feel called out, whispered Tommy. As the class settled, Sarah moved to the back and checked her messages. Zorvix had pinged her. Hi, Arbiter Zorvix. We have completed the documentation for your Earth-based school model. It is being replicated in 17 systems. Current designation, Chaos Pedagogy Protocol, Chen Method. Sarah, I'd call it semi-organized improvisation. Zorvix, you're being modest. We've adopted your potluck learning model. The hive mind is preparing psychic brownies. Sarah, tell them to label the nuts this time. Down the row, one of her students held up a crystalline box, glowing faintly violet. Miss Chen, said Emma, what do we do if these Zorblachian muffins start vibrating again? Just mark them empathically active and offer them a compliment. Emma nodded, then politely whispered something positive toward the muffin, which shivered gently in satisfaction. Sarah shook her head. This had somehow become normal. Vankar's latest report had confirmed it. Earth's schools were now the blueprint for cross-species collaboration, not because they were perfect, not because they were advanced, but because they made room for chaos, collaboration, and snacks. She stood and addressed the class again. Tomorrow, we'll be holding our first cultural show and tell. Everyone brings something that represents their species. Jess raised a hand. Can I bring means? I expected nothing less. Can Voop bring whatever that wiggly thing was from his lunchbox? Sarah considered. As long as it doesn't bite anyone. Again. The classroom lights dimmed as Dr. Flynn began projecting his lecture in multisensory format. Music, scent, and flashing lights layered into a lesson about moral prioritization in buffet lines. And in the middle of it all, Sarah smiled. This was her life now, managing interstellar chaos through snack diplomacy, dance-based physics experiments, and children from 17 planets, all trying to learn algebra. She wouldn't have it any other way. At precisely 8:43 IM, just after a chaotic homeroom and one slightly overcooked breakfast sandwich, Sarah Chen received an interstellar memo that hovered midair and unrolled itself like a glowing scroll from a fantasy movie. The message was brief, to the point, and completely absurd. Subject: Experimental Physics Integration Activity. Location: Mall. Objective: Ice cream and astrophysics. Participants: all species. Side effects: possible brain freeze and minor existential dread. She blinked, then exhaled slowly, finishing her coffee with the resigned grace of someone who had already taught class through 2 minor spatial rifts and 1 spontaneous interpretive dance by the Glorthan exchange students. With a practiced calm, she stood in front of her hybrid classroom and clapped once. Pack up, everyone. We've got a field trip. The students, both human and alien, responded with a chorus of delighted chaos. Zorik, the crystalline exchange student, pulsed with bright lavender. Vup, the gelatinous Zorblachian, let out a joyful burble that lightly jiggled every desk within a 2-meter radius. Emma was already halfway through designing a new sticker pack titled Zero Gravity Scoops. Their destination was a suburban mall retrofitted by the Galactic Council into a cross-species educational complex. The mall's food court now included smell-based curriculum kiosks, physics demonstration zones shaped like boba shops, and a shimmering centerpiece attraction labeled in 15 languages, Quantum Ice Cream Lab. The welcoming greeter, a being made entirely of sentient sugar crystals, extended a scoop-shaped limb and intoned with great gravity, "Welcome to Frozen Dairy Dynamics. Here, the sprinkles bend space." Sarah didn't flinch. She'd seen worse slogans from actual Earth brands. Dr. Zio, their host from the Zarnati Institute of Spatial Sciences, had 17 eyes, each of which appeared to be blinking independently in panic as he introduced the centerpiece of the lab, a stabilized black hole simulator, calibrated for educational purposes and positioned next to a row of neon-lit dessert dispensers. Students were invited to experiment with the gravitational effects of flavor density and rotational momentum. Sarah only halfway listened to the explanation. She was already watching her students scatter, tools in hand, giggling like a gang of sugar-fueled physicists on a mission. Vup attempted to analyze the mass compression of chocolate fudge ripple by absorbing it. Zorik tried to amplify the flavor resonance of pistachio swirl using bioluminescent pulses. Tommy launched a scoop of stardust sherbet at a quantum vortex and cheered when it slingshotted back with extra topping. Sarah could only watch as one of her students began balancing neutron-spun waffle cones with a level of focus usually reserved for national competitions. Jess, meanwhile, was composing a gravity-based haiku while recording her findings for what would become a viral Galak talk. Then it happened. Zorik, eager to test the instability of hot fudge near a semi-permeable singularity, flung a scoop of galactic mocha into the vortex with a flick of one prismatic limb. The resulting reaction caused time to loop for precisely 11 seconds. Sarah, mid-step, watched herself catch the same falling scoop 36 times in a row before the timeline snapped back into sync. In the silence that followed, all of them looked around at their colorful, sticky, slightly frozen chaos. There were cones stuck to ceilings. A scoop of quantum mint floated calmly in a low-gravity field. One of the Zorblakian muffins was humming. Sarah licked the falling raspberry scoop she finally caught and muttered, "That's going in the faculty report, right after I figure out which flavor causes relativistic drift." The council's analysis arrived the next morning. The ice cream incident, as it was now labeled, had become the most downloaded educational module in 17 sectors. The section about Sarah's students inventing a new form of gravitational mapping using sprinkles was already being debated by doctoral candidates from 2 moons and a gas giant. She received a message directly from Zorvix. He congratulated her on what he described as a seamless integration of flavor-based chaos and advanced spatial comprehension, then asked if she would be willing to consult on a proposed dessert-based curriculum. Apparently, the Zarnathi were very impressed with what the Earthlings referred to as astrosnack theory. Sarah agreed under the condition that any future interstellar food-based experiments come with labeled toppings and a universal safe word for too much cinnamon. Back in her classroom, the blackboard read, "Today's lesson, gravity, flavor, and emotional mass." Her students were busy designing orbital sundae sculptures. One of them discovered that if you stir vanilla with a neutrino spoon fast enough, it hums a tune in B-flat. For just a moment, Sarah leaned against her desk, watching them build the future with candy and math, and she couldn't help but smile. It wasn't the lab equipment or the high-tech simulations that were changing the galaxy. It was them, and they were just getting started. The first thing Sarah Chen noticed when she walked into her classroom Monday morning was that someone, possibly several someones, had turned the front wall into a living meme board. Projected across the entire surface were holograms in shifting fonts and alien glyphs, blinking in layered streams of absurdity. A Zorblakian proverb had been reformatted as a distracted boyfriend meme. A wormhole stability equation was now captioned. When the multiverse says no, but your curiosity says YOLO. There was even a dancing crystalline caricature of Zorvix Thal wearing sunglasses labeled Vibe Arbiter. Sarah set down her coffee slowly and took it all in. "Okay," she said, half laughing, "which one of you turned our theoretical physics curriculum into a meme war zone?" A dozen hands and appendages shot into the air. Zorik glowed pink. Emma shrugged innocently. Voop wobbled proudly and displayed an animated emoji of a scoop of quantum ice cream orbiting a tiny black hole with the caption, "Gravitas? I barely know her." It wasn't chaos, not really. It was educational anarchy with punchlines. The idea had started innocently enough. After the ice cream incident, Sarah had casually mentioned to her students that humor was one of humanity's oldest cognitive tools, a way to compress ideas, to bridge cultural divides, to question power, and yes, sometimes, just to laugh about your own ridiculous place in the universe. Now it had evolved. Memes were no longer just decorations, they were infrastructure. In the corner of the room, Zurich had connected his bioluminescent pattern generator to the class server and was projecting equations using beat-synced visuals. Voop was collaborating with 3 students on a meme archive that indexed scientific humor by subject, emotional tone, and maximum laugh density. Even Dr. Zeal, the Zarnathi physicist with 17 eyes and the posture of a nervous violin, had contributed a "Nobody expects the entropic inquisition macro." The Galactic Council, predictably, was baffled. In one of their more politely worded updates, Zorvix had asked Sarah if she was aware that her students' memes were now being studied by think tanks. Another memo warned that Zorbalakian philosophers had started holding debates in reaction meme format and had replaced their citation systems with clickable GIF trails. Sarah, typing back between bites of a snack she no longer recognized but that tasted faintly like lime and stardust, had simply replied, "Yes, that's the point." Memes weren't a distraction. They were a methodology. They distilled knowledge. They traveled faster than textbooks. They mutated across species lines, taking root in neural link systems, visual languages, and even, bizarrely, scent-based communication arrays. One Glorthan dance troupe had created an entire interpretive performance based on "one does not simply stabilize a wormhole," and it had sold out for 3 lunar cycles. Her class was now an epicenter of this educational insurgency. Knowledge flowed not from textbook to mind, but from joke to realization. A visual pun on quantum entanglement became a teaching tool. A remix of Schrödinger's cat turned into a debate about consciousness and measurement, and when Voop tried to explain the concept of dark matter using the invisible girlfriend meme, Sarah realized they'd crossed some kind of threshold. That afternoon, during their cultural fusion session, Zorvix joined via hologram, now standard practice. His form shimmered into the corner of the room, fractal light coalescing into vaguely humanoid structure. "Educator Chen," he said carefully, "the council requests clarification on the phenomenon labeled shitposting." Sarah didn't flinch. "That depends. Are you asking academically or personally?" He hesitated. "Both." She smiled. "Then let me show you something." She connected her screen and played a short animation created by her students, a mashup of historical galactic missteps, human errors, and celebratory recoveries. It was clever, it was chaotic, and it ended with a banner that read, "We learned, we laughed, we revised the laws of physics." Zorvix watched in silence. Then, softly, he said, "We always assumed emotional irreverence was a weakness." "It's not," Sarah replied. "It's how we breathe when the universe feels too big." He shimmered in approval. "Your students are teaching ours now, using this meme methodology. They're learning from each other." "It's working," Zorvix admitted, "faster than anything we've implemented in centuries." Outside the classroom, Sarah could hear a group of younger exchange students giggling as they translated gravitational collapse into a game of charades. Inside, someone had projected a meme of a cat trying to calculate relativistic decay with laser pointer physics. It was ridiculous. It was brilliant. And it was the future. It started with brownies. Not even special ones. Just Sarah's grandmother's recipe. Fudgy, dense, a little cracked on top. She'd brought a tray for her students during what was supposed to be a low-key review session. By the end of the day, 3 alien dignitaries had requested a diplomatic sample, and the Galactic Council had issued an official query regarding cocoa-based cohesion rituals, involving cocoa. Within the week, Earth's contribution to galactic education had expanded to include the most chaotic idea yet, the interstellar bake sale. Sarah hadn't planned it, not really. It just happened. One moment she was explaining the math behind oven thermodynamics, the next she was overseeing booths sponsored by 17 different species, all experimenting with both baking and physics. The hive mind's psychic cinnamon rolls could induce lucid dreams. The Zorblaki gelatin pies changed color depending on how kind you were to them, and the Glorthan Collective's interpretive soufflé? It deflated mid-dance and was declared a philosophical success. What she had planned, sort of, was the first galactic science fair. It was meant to showcase cross-species projects, zero-gravity propulsion models made with soda cans, AI-powered linguistics assistants built from recycled vending machines, and a wormhole hypothesis visualized using glitter and marbles. But it was the unplanned bits that made it memorable. For example, no one expected the intergalactic science bet pool. It began innocently. One of Sarah's students joking that VUP's jellybean-shaped graviton launcher wouldn't function outside Earth's atmospheric density. Another student disagreed. Bets were made, then recalculated. Within hours, students and observers from 3 systems had joined the pool. Zorvix bet 3 lightstones on a muffin-powered drone. Sarah had to stop 2 students from trying to open a betting market on time loop stability. The council did not disapprove. They merely asked that all wagers be logged under student motivation enhancement. Meanwhile, Sarah floated from station to station, clipboard in hand, marveling at what had become completely normal. One project used dance as a navigational language for zero-G starships. Another harnessed chaotic energy from middle school tantrums to stabilize quantum fields. There were charts, jokes, explosions, laughter, and food. So much food. At one point, a psychic pastry from the hive mind booth attempted to read Sarah's thoughts and ended up requesting her brownie recipe. She wrote it down, in triplicate, one for the hive, one for Zorvix, one to submit to the Galactic Culinary Archives, where it was categorized under peace offerings and occasional weapons. As the fair drew to a close, a hush settled over the crowd. The main display platform rotated, revealing the final surprise, the Meme Hall of Fame. A panoramic hologram of the galaxy's greatest moments in education, explained entirely through memes, GIFs, and animated emotes. Sarah's own face appeared on a poster titled, "When the Physics Teacher Solves a Black Hole with a Tick-Tock and a Spoon." Her class burst into applause. Jess threw confetti, Voot leaked glitter in admiration. Zorik blinked a series of appreciative lights that translated loosely to, "I understand the emotional mass of inside jokes now." Sarah took a step forward and addressed the crowd. 5 months ago, we weren't even sure if our world belonged in your galaxy. We made mistakes. We asked weird questions. We solved problems with coffee and memes. But you gave us a seat. And we brought snacks. The room responded with cheers, song, light flashes, and somehow a perfectly synchronized conga line that spanned 5 species. It was, as always, a little unhinged and absolutely beautiful. Later that evening, as the last students cleaned up the booths, Sarah sat on the stage alone, munching on a muffin that may or may not have been sentient. Zorvix appeared beside her, via shimmering holoprojection, holding what looked suspiciously like a plate of brownies, replicated down to the atomic level. "You've redefined educational theory," he said quietly. Sarah smirked, "With pastry and memes." Zorvix pulsed with warm, shimmering blue. "Exactly." She leaned back, stretching sore arms and tired legs. "So what now? What's next?" Zorvix paused. "There are talks of an intergalactic teaching fellowship, a cross-species curriculum built from your model, and there's a petition to rename the muffin quasar after you." Sarah blinked. "You're naming a celestial body after a snack we baked in a classroom?" "No," Zorvix corrected. "We're naming it after the idea that education, no matter how advanced, is best served with curiosity, laughter, and maybe a little sugar." And for once, Sarah didn't have a comeback. She just smiled and passed him a brownie. 5 minutes before the last bell of the school year, Sarah Chen stood in front of her classroom, watching 27 students of 13 species debate the proper way to high-five with a pseudopod. It was beautiful chaos. Zorik was flashing celebratory colors in sync with Earth graduation music. Voop had affixed miniature glittering mortarboards to each of his sensory lobes. Emma had organized a conga line of humans and aliens that looped around the lab tables and, somehow, through a tiny temporary wormhole created during 5th serious snack time, Sarah's desk was stacked with thank you cards, homemade snacks of various densities, and a glowing orb labeled Best Teacher in the local arm of the galaxy, which hummed faintly when she smiled. She glanced at the clock, then at the glowing message hovering above the board. Final lesson, what comes next? The classroom quieted as she stepped to the front. You've learned how to collapse a probability field using empathy. You've stabilized a black hole with spoon choreography. You've turned memes into teaching tools and baked goods into cross-specs diplomacy. Laughter, a few proud wiggles. But more than that, you've proven something every student in the galaxy deserves to know. She paused. That curiosity doesn't need to be serious to be powerful. That laughter and chaos can solve equations logic alone couldn't. That sometimes the weirdest ideas are the ones that save the universe. The bell rang. No one moved. Outside, the sky shimmered with the colors of distant ships arriving for the galactic commencement ceremony. News drones hovered at the edges of the courtyard, recording what had become the single most influential classroom in the spiral arm. Students from across space were tuning in via Holstreams and DreamSync. Sarah turned off the lights, and the classroom glowed with the energy of every wild thing they'd built together. Meme boards, zero-gravity chalk equations, planetary snack charts, and doodles of space cats labeled important scientific phenomena. Then came the final surprise. The lights dimmed, and a new projection appeared, a montage of the year created by the students. Scenes flickered by, first contact via meme, the fusion dance experiment, the mall field trip, the black hole ice cream lab, the bake sale science fair, the cat video-based gravity theory, and finally, a slow pan across every single face in the class. The final frame was Sarah standing mid-lecture, coffee in one hand, pointer in the other, her eyebrows raised mid-sentence as if about to say, "Wait, you did what?" Below it, Galaxy class dismissed. Her eyes watered. She blamed the classroom humidity. Then her tablet pinged. "Hi, Arbiter Zorvix, Educator Chen. The Council has reviewed your work. Effective immediately, we wish to offer you a permanent advisory role in the Intergalactic Educational Coalition." She laughed, typed back with one hand as students mobbed her for hugs and photos. "Sarah, only if I can bring snacks." Zoravix. It would not be the same without them. That night, as fireworks bloomed in the sky above the Cleveland School building, now designated as a galactic heritage site, Sarah stood with her students on the roof. They watched as lightships danced past the moon. The stars were full of stories waiting to be told. Voop burbled something emotional. Zorik pulsed with a shimmering shade of gratitude. Emma leaned her head on Sarah's shoulder and whispered, "You think the galaxy's really ready for us?" Sarah looked out across the vast, glowing sky and smiled. "Not even remotely.